You happy?
I look like an extra in Beverly Hills Cop, like 1980s version.
Cleveland.
Oh shit!
Yeah,
All right, I'm going for a
fantastic.
run.
Cheers.
Down. Oh God. Oh no.
He looks like Cleveland.
Yeah.
Damn. Someone said to me as a way of trying to compliment me, I really like it. You look like that Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Who said that? From
Again,
Hull?
no, from Southwest, from West London.
Oh, right, fair enough. They're more likely to know who that is.
Wow! Shots fired at my former abode.
Mate, that's almost my home county, so.
What do you mean? It is your home county.
I'm
Yorkshire.
I'm not from the East Riding of Yorkshire.
It's Yorkshire, mate.
Yeah, but it's so big you don't really.
I don't claim North Yorkshire, do I?
You
Not
claim
from
Yorkshire.
Barnet,
It depends how far away you get, right?
Yeah.
Depends how far away you are. Once you get into the UK, you can say Yorkshire. If it's someone that knows Yorkshire, it's just like you can segment it.
I was at a party last week, and someone said to me they were from Yorkshire, and I was like, "Oh, where?" And they said Stockton upon Tees. That's not my Yorkshire.
It's not my Yorkshire either.
Not exactly.
But it is
the
Yorkshire.
point.
But
This
it is
the point.
Yorkshire.
But my county is West Yorkshire.
Oh yeah. It's not even the best Yorkshire.
West Yorkshire is. It is.
Indisputably, it's South
It's
Yorkshire.
the one that's.
It's not even my Yorkshire. It's South
got
Yorkshire.
the most money. It's got the most
Money.
Look at the capitalist over
Most
there.
money.
It's the best because it's got the
retained its
most.
industry. It's the most beautiful, possibly the most beautiful. I think it might be the most beautiful.
Again, all of Yorkshire
What's
is
in
beautiful.
South Yorkshire?
Well, you got Sheffield for one.
Interesting that you went for Ripper Country. So yeah, it's pretty much it's known for that. It's known for all the grisly, gruesome killers that happen to have been born in Yorkshire.
and the steel industry.
Came out of place. Yeah, and what's happened?
You can't claim Sheffield as the place in Yorkshire that is like a beacon.
If you're going for a night out in Yorkshire, where are you going?
Sheffield is best
Definitely
known.
not to Sheffield.
Okay, as someone that's been out there in the last few years and on nights out, unlike you hipsters, I'm telling you that Sheffield is the best night out in Yorkshire. Leeds is absolutely not the best night out in Yorkshire.
Have you been to Halifax?
I have actually been out in Halifax.
Vegas.
Oh, that's like people from Castleford being like, "Oh, it's Castleford." You always have to have a quirky nickname when the place is absolutely trash.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. Sheffield is easily the best.
What's good about Sheffield?
Answer me this: does Mr. Brightside still go off?
It does in
Well,
Sheffield.
there we go. We answered it.
Mm-hmm.
We've answered that. That's the end of that.
Once upon a time, it would have been Huddersfield, but those days are long gone now, unfortunately.
Look, to all people from Sheffield, it's fine.
It's
It's
fine.
fine.
That's it. It's fine.
I'm not even from Sheffield, but I'm 10 toes for it.
Did you taught there, right?
No, I did my masters there.
You did your masters there.
It was
right?
phenomenal.
Okay, so you've got an emotional attachment to this place.
And you're literally from West Yorkshire.
I'm not from Leeds, but I think Leeds is a better night out than Sheffield.
But it's just not.
I think it is.
I don't think people from Leeds would say it's a better night out than Sheffield.
Beg to differ.
Whenever I go out in Sheffield, what do you know I see? People from Leeds.
There's no evidence for this.
None at all.
Welcome to Black in a Box, The World is Told by Black Faces in White Spaces.
You're getting better at that.
Cheers, mate. Little election. Not going to call it spin-off. We're just here to talk election.
Yeah. Some stuff happened, didn't it?
And we thought it appropriate to remove the American who actually was involved in voting.
Yeah.
Well, that's why we removed her. Look what happened when we gave her a voice and a vote. Hold tight, Alana. Can't wait to see you back next episode. The funny thing is, she's going to edit this video, so she's let's just keep quiet, and that's the first time she's going to see it. That's how I know she's watched it back. She comes in firing about getting the shots, you know.
She didn't do enough.
No, but
It was black women that the reason that it all happened, wasn't it? That's what they say.
Barely. I cannot see. I'm leaving. Huh?
it's. What do you think?
I wasn't surprised. So, and I wasn't surprised because I was listening to all the stuff on the left. I was listening to like Pod Save America, David Axelrod. I was checking in with CNN, MSNBC, and I was like, they don't seem to realize that we will genocide harder is perhaps not a winning message. The other side, the other side will genocide harder is not a winning message. The not letting Palestinian speakers, and what I was thinking is, I thought that election would test two theories to destruction. The Republicans spent all their time trying to secure their base. The Democrats spent all their time trying to chase people or invite people into their base as opposed to securing theirs.
It might work next time.
There was I'll find it in a second, but there was a post that Karis Afoko, who is the host of the Over the Top Under the Radar podcast, put out, where I'll find it and we'll then add it in. But yeah, I wasn't surprised because I thought, A, Joe Biden screwed her over, but B, I don't think she ran the right kind of campaign. And the problem is that I just don't see neoliberal policies winning in the West anytime in the next sort of 20 to 30 years.
What do you think she should have done differently in terms of the way that she ran the campaign?
I think she should have talked more about I know it sounds cliche to say, but tabletop issues. The one that she spoke about garnered huge support, which was going after price gouging. I think that she should have veered away from all of the billionaires. I think it was a massive mistake to spend all that time campaigning with Liz Cheney, because that just reminded people of Iraq. Look, the fact of the matter is Trump got roughly around the same number of votes that he got in 2020. It was the Democrat vote that collapsed. Trump got more votes in the cities. I think that the other thing that I would have done is run but then I don't think it's her politics to run a more insurgent campaign, to run a Bernie Sanders AOC style campaign where you are going after the system. Her working theory seemed to be people will vote for the system because they don't have an issue with the system. And I think that what was very, very clear is that there is an issue. The average voter does not trust in the sort of centralized governmental politics that she was espousing.
Yeah, I mean, like this is what it is in a nutshell for me, is that I think, like, in the UK as well, mainstream politicians, mainstream political parties have just done so little to positively advance things for the man on the street in the last 20 years that ultimately, people will turn to another choice who's not promising them that things are going to necessarily be that much better. They're just promising like that they won't be the same as these other people, and that's enough. And it's like, if that person is openly self-interested, but they've made loads of money for themselves, they're like, you know what, that person's made some money for themselves. Let me go with that guy. Let me go with that person who's openly, nakedly self-interested. And that's why you're getting these sort of these kind of insane iconoclasts rising up. And like, they're just not going to get it. You've seen the same thing with the Labour Party here, who are realising in real time how, like, they seem to be shocked at the fact that their like honeymoon period lasted about 15 seconds because they promised something a little bit different, and they're not even like veering away from that. Like it's more of the same for everyone. And if things are essentially bad and they continue to be bad, and you can't do anything about it, like where else have people got to turn?
Do you think, though, and this is something that I've struggled with, that we look at the Trump campaign and a lot of it was just slogans with no substance, and the second you try and dig into what he's saying or what the Republicans were saying, there's obviously very, very little to support the claims. We think about tariffs. The vast majority of people that I've heard talking about tariffs, when I've seen them interviewed, assumed that meant that prices were going to drop in the US, having higher tariffs on imports. If you've got such a huge voter base that doesn't pay attention to detail, just wants slogans and sound bites that are going to make them feel as though something is going to change, is the answer that the Democrats just go down that alley as well.
You're patronising the American voter, I feel like there, because this is one of the arguments I've heard again from centre-left, left-leaning podcasts, which is that this was because the average American voter is low information turnout. If you look at certain specific counties, the Muslim vote was absolutely depressed. And it was depressed because, do you remember the I'm speaking, not allowing a Muslim representative on who would have been completely vetted? There was no outreach. Sending Bill Clinton there to kind of reaffirm America's support. They're not low information voters. And they always kind of go for the examples of the people that, are against Obamacare but for the Affordable Care Act, not realising that they're the same thing. But it is undeniable that centralised government, as a neoliberal government, does not work for the average person on the street. Remember, we all, have spent a long part of our lives growing up in Yorkshire where we were told things are getting better. Meanwhile, the trains were dying and people could not afford to kind of go on holiday or get their haircut or do the little things that really, really matter. And it's all well and good talking about these big policies that are going to do or not do, but I think it's patronising to the American voter to say the reason that Trump won is because they're low information. I would argue that actually the Democrats did not get on the voters' wavelength. I don't know if they've listened to a Theo Von podcast. I don't know if they've listened to a Joe Rogan podcast.
She
I don't
wouldn't
know
go
if they've
on
listened
Rogan,
to
would she?
or an Andrew Schultz podcast. I'm not saying that these guys are purveyors of truth, but what they do have, which I think this neoliberal centre-left doesn't have, is an ability to talk to the people that they're listening to. It can't all be black in a box kind of, pseudo-intellectual. You've got to have that, which one of the turtles would you most slap in a fight, or that kind of easy listening. They don't have that. And I also think it's weak source to keep going for the existential threat argument. We saw it with Brexit. And as you just said, Dan, I'll say it a bit more succinctly. If my two options are the same or chaos, and the same is bad for me, I'm going to choose chaos.
Yeah. It's a lot of fake humility, isn't it? I think why there's quite a few people that are dismayed at the Democrats in the US, and a lot of the voter base. I find myself a lot of that. You probably took it from what I was just saying there, that I think a lot of us who are left-leaning, centre-left, whatever you want to say, it will take a lot for people to admit that they think that they're better or smarter than a lot of people that are voting the other way. And I think there's going to have to be a reckoning of that within the Democratic Party to be like, yeah, okay, we have thought this. There has been a lot of hubris there that we've not admitted, and learn from that. And I don't understand how in the States what you say is actually possible in terms of learning to speak to those people.
But even the fact that we're calling it those people. But so my favourite message that I received was from my friend. Me and my friend have exactly the same kind of humour. And as soon as it became clear that Trump was going to win, he sent me a message being like, so when are you getting your pink pussy hat? Because that's the issue right there. For those of you that don't remember, when Trump won in 2016, and he won by carrying white women. White women have voted a majority for Trump 3 elections in a row. There was a bunch of liberal women who started wearing what they called pink pussy hats, and it was the most BS form of white female liberalism. Because it's like, do you know what you could have done instead of making hats after the election? Talk to your racist sister, your racist mum, your racist auntie. While they're going us and them and those people, they're not going to win elections because I want to just pivot it slightly because sorry, Dan.
Well, I was just going to say, I think ultimately you were saying that it's thin on policy. He was president for 5 years, for his full term in 2016, 4 years. Like, what, you don't need policy. people think they know what he stands for. So it's quite a privileged position to not really have to do anything. That's why when he was going against Biden, he was just playing the man. He was playing the man, and he panicked when they changed to opposition, and it ended up being the Democrats who dropped the ball because, like, you know, it was they thought they had this momentum, and that's when, you know, they pivoted to go, like, let's get the celebrity vote, let's get all these people. And to me, look, I think, I shouldn't be saying this on air, but there are other places people can go for a better American political analysis, Angela notwithstanding. But to me, like, the interest is how are people trying to get those votes, and that's like an interesting little window into, you know, speaking only about the black community. Kamala Harris, she was like some very interesting sort of, they've obviously got some very clever people, so they had the viral thing where with the girls lining up, popping the balloon for, you know, showing interest in the guy, like, are you interested in politics? Like, you know, there was the sort of the crypto thing. So is this what black men are interested in? Like, just picking up girls, crypto, like money or whatever. And, you know, on one of the other successful podcasts, Joe Budden, they were like, they felt patronized by her, by that's the way they approached it. Not, you know, and they're like, by her employment of those tactics and the use of celebrities, you know, Meg Thee Stallion twerking. It's kind of like, it is very sort of three really smart politicos sat in a room and thought, you know what, let's tune into their frequency, or we think we're tuning into their frequency.
And you know what Trump understood that Kamala Harris never did? And I'll ask you guys, think back to your best teachers at school. Was it because they knew the most about the subject, or was it because they made you feel a certain way? If you were going to say it was either one or the other. If I think back to my two best teachers, there are subjects I didn't do particularly well in, but they respected the hell out of my humanity.
Yeah.
Trump connects with people. They don't care about policies. They care that he made them feel good. And I would say the other thing that the Democrats forgotten, this is, again, I go back to Biden. Biden, I hope, is remembered as one of the worst presidents because of his last year. They needed a primary because Kamala Harris was insincere. Because do you know who's not low information in US elections? Black people. And do you remember how she bombed out of the primaries the first time? It's because what do you stand for? Like, for all the, you know, I'm not getting into Bernie Sanders and the Bernie bros, but people knew what he stands for because he's been saying the same thing for 20 years. People think that they know what AOC stands for. Katie Porter, they know what she stands for. And when you start giving off the vibe of, I'm saying or doing this because it's what my advisors say, whereas Trump's like, the advisor's like, just stay on message. And he's like, these guys want me to stay on message, but I'm going to tell you, you know, fuck the Arabs, or whatever it is he wants to say. The Democrats have allowed him to corner the market on sounding authentic. And that is in large part the reason why she lost. And I wish Alana was here because I think she might try to counter that, but the numbers don't lie. And also, black men voted for her 80%. Black women voted for her 91%. You know, it's the Democrats need to kind of start to understand why white people do not think they are their party. They also got some work to do with the Latin American or Latinx community. But at the absolute core of it, Trump makes his supporters feel good. And on the other side, you've got Barack Obama kind of telling us to pull up our bootstraps.
It's going to be interesting to watch the next 4 years. I'm a big believer in sometimes, you know, you really like, when you think you hear wood on wood, keep listening. It's a fake bottom. So I think it's good. It's going to be a difficult time for some people. For others, they'll get what they want. Ultimately, the fact there are billionaires everywhere you look running the show, I can guess who it's going to be a good time for.
But it would have been great for billionaires under Kamala Harris. This is the insincerity.
That's always going to be the case.
Yeah, absolutely. But if they're literally lining up to be in the cabinet, there's a reason why they're doing that, because they're not stupid. So like, I take what you're saying, but then I put it to you like, if they are literally in control and doing the direct decision making as opposed to just, you know, being very persuasive with large sums of money. It's not even costing them anything.
This is why I struggle when we say that. I know that obviously not all, and not even necessarily a majority of Americans allow information, but there's a real cognitive dissonance there in terms of if you are thinking about this, having the assumption that someone like an Elon Musk is going to be good for the common man. Like, I don't understand if you are struggling how you could think that this guy's in your corner.
But and this is where, like, I think being from, like, I'm not from America, but I've read a lot of people say this. It's a nation of like temporarily frustrated billionaires.
Yeah.
Everyone is like, it's the American dream, right? Everyone is one break away from that being them. So why am I going to vote? Why am I going to vote against?
We oftentimes, and we can't be blamed for this because it's where we're from, we judge the American electorate based on the sensibilities that I think Western European people typically have.
Miserable island
very,
people.
very different. It's very, very different from the optimism.
Our politics are drifting ever rightward.
Yeah, but I don't think there's as much what Dan is saying, the assumption in British people in particular, that things are gonna or could potentially just get better.
I think we're completely different mentality.
Completely different.
There's a great chapter in Michael Moore's book, Dude, Where's My Country? And it's called Horatio Alger Must Die. And he talks about this. And Horatio Alger, I think, is a 19th century writer of children's stories who told these stories that were really well received of a down on his luck guy that gets a couple of breaks, works really hard and ends up rich. And he was like, this belief is killing us in America. Like, the deck is completely stacked. You're not going to make it. And, you know, I think Dave Chappelle must have read that book because obviously he said it a bit more succinctly when he went back, and he said, I went back to my old school, and you got to work hard, and you got to sell crack or play basketball. Is the only way I've seen it work. And it's that idea that actually you're not going to make it. Making it doesn't mean being a billionaire. Like, I would argue that the three of us have made it, because we're able to look at ourselves in the mirror in the morning and be relatively happy with what we see.
Isn't it? Because I think we know that, we acknowledge that. I think there's way less.
But how much therapy and learning and striving have we had to take to get there?
But I think that the regular British person has that assumption that these are the cards I've been dealt. This is my life. This is my lot.
And that's a lot. That's attributable to a lot of the sort of sense of dread which just pervades this country a lot of the time. And I genuinely think it has its problems, but the fact that people are generally hopeful that they can turn their position around is a good it is a good thing. It is a good thing.
But it also makes you, I think, more selfish and less altruistic, really, in terms of, I think, why I can understand the fear of immigration as much that they have it in the US, because it's like, me and mine is important, because again, if we have a couple of lucky breaks, me and my family can be really, really successful. So who are these chances coming in trying to steal that?
But is that as dangerous as here, where it's like we've got nothing and then there's people coming in to steal that? That's a worse place to be. Whereas in America, like, it's a nation, like, you know, they don't like, I think it was a good thing from the talk about before, but now I'm hearing it's less positively viewed when people mention it. Is a nation of people from elsewhere. So,
did you see the Eddie Huang interview that went somewhat viral, where he was talking to a white guy, and he's talking? When
was that?
It's I think it must have been a couple of years ago. No, but it must have been in the last year or two, because
what did he say?
Fuck off. I caught it the first time.
I caught it the first time. I was like,
you played that very well.
I'm going to move. I just moved past because I knew what you was doing.
Yeah, this is Trisha.
Look, I'm media trained now. But no, he was talking to this older sort of Gen X white guy who was like, I'm voting Trump, immigration is out of control. And Eddie Huang is from Chengdu in China. So even me, I'm falling into it. Eddie Huang was born and raised in this country. His family is from emigrated from Chengdu in China. And basically he was making this case being like, but hold on a second, your policies would make it so that my family couldn't go. And the guy went full nativism. He's like, when my ancestors built this country, they weren't building it for other people. Everywhere where white people are a minority, they don't have power. And he's like, well, I don't think your ancestors built their country. And the guy wouldn't move. And so I think that we also have to contend with the fact that there has been for at least 8 years, and because I think a lot of people on the left and centre left don't tune into the right, and we talked about it in one of our recent episodes with the Andrew Schultz thing, there has been this drip feed of white fright that essentially we need to kick the immigrants out because they're going to have more children than us and the white race is going to be lost. You have to reckon with that and have a better answer than slogans. The most damning thing about the Republicans, and I will probably be saying this in a few years when we either have Prime Minister Kemi or Prime Minister Nigel Farage, is that the left or the centre left never actually took on and dismantled the arguments that were being made from the centre right and the right. And they lost the argument on immigration. They lost the argument on all of these things because they chose to stand above it. And that is going to kill.
But did we not see that when it came to Brexit, though? Because we had really learned economists coming and talking about the economic damage that Brexit would do to this country, but it still didn't beat the slogans.
Yeah, but this is it. And everyone's like, oh, well, they didn't sell in the positive merits of it. They will get, like, at some point, people have to just own like their decision making and the reasons for why they voted. Like it's to say, well, you weren't compelling enough. Like you can always say that. It's a very easy thing to say when a vote goes a particular way and they lay out the facts. These are the facts. They are the positives of immigration. Like, why do you need to say what? Like, why do you need to make a case for that? Like, genuinely.
Why do you need to make a positive case for immigration?
Like, to someone who thinks immigration is a bad idea, if you lay out the economic facts of it, why are there, like, why do you need to argue for, like, the positive traits of people from another place?
Positive that it's going to do to your country, yeah.
Well, on a really simple level, it's because, again, nobody is in positions of real power is actually is countering the lie that the reason you don't have enough money, the reason you can't go to the hospital, the reason that you can't afford anything is because these porters at the hospital and the cleaners are kind of sponging off the state. And you say it's that simple if you lay it out, but it's not that simple.
No, but we have that over here because you can quite clearly see as well, whether it's, I don't really like the TV show, but Question Time or other things like that, where there will be comments about what immigration is doing to the state over here. But then you'll have someone who works within, I don't know, the Treasury or works in local government. My mum, for instance, she works in local government. She can give me facts and figures on how much is spent from Kirklees Council for people that are that are immigrants, for people that are in the country that are awaiting asylum, those kinds of things. And it's negligible. And like the net benefits are much greater than what comes out of it. But when you have that and you have that conversation, you explain those facts to these people a lot of the time. And I'm going to say these people a lot of the time, that's not as compelling as a slogan. And I don't know how we beat that in a society now where attention spans are way lower than they've ever been.
Yeah. But I would argue, because you're right, they hammer the same slogan. They hammer the same slogan. I've actually been doing this with some students that it's a really weird time to be looking at a text like Animal Farm, for example, where it's like, right, and the fat cat and the fat pigs are the bad ones, remember? Really? Because in life, seems like they're winning. But it's that idea that what is Make America Great Again? It's a call to unity. If you wear the red hat and you say Make America Great Again, we're together. And if we get screwed over by this guy, we're getting screwed over worse by them anyway. And I get what you're saying, Dan, but it is incumbent upon those that want to who don't think the world is going well to articulate and dismantle why they think the argument of the opposition is bunk.
But my point is they did that, and like I say, they as you were saying, like, oh, we are losing jobs, we are losing money, etc. That was the only argument made, was the economic one. And I think a lot of people are saying, well, some of the sort of the positive side of that, beyond the economic like factors should have been argued. And I'm like, well, I kind of feel like you're then into like trying to persuade someone to show some.
But you've got to make the emotional argument. It's what we were saying earlier about how, you know, the left, and I'm using that as a term, but the left doesn't have a.
There isn't a left. It's like,
yeah, but they don't have people that can speak to the populace, and part of the reason is, you know, there was this really massive podcaster that was a Democratic supporter, was a big fan of Bernie Sanders, and he was virtue signaled out of it.
Yeah.
We all know who I'm talking about. He's got the biggest podcast in the world. It was Joe Rogan. And I do think that, like, I think you said it about 4 years ago that, you know, purity politics is killing my people. You know, we've got to have imperfect allies. But what it boils down to, 2015, 2016 was a huge inflection point for, I think, neoliberalism. I don't want to make it too political, but a lot of people felt that Bernie Sanders got screwed, and the whole thing with Bernie Bros and casting them all as toxic and all of that stuff, you've created a situation where you've lost any claim to the moral high ground. But more importantly, as you were saying, Dan, they don't have the ability to kind of say, here is the statistics and here's how it affects you at home. And the right can go, don't worry about the statistics. Here's how what I'm saying affects you at home. Which is the more powerful thing? And I go back to, you don't remember what your teachers taught you remember how they made you feel.
I get everything that you're saying, and I really wish that I could see it in such an, I want to say optimistic lens, but I think you are giving people too much credit. I genuinely think you are. And I honestly go back to Dave Chappelle, you've mentioned it already. Do you remember Black Bush? Mm-hmm. And the amount of times where a reporter in that skit would ask a very genuine question, and it's like, we're going to the moon. We're going to Mars. Gay people are getting married. It's like that is what I'm seeing in play right now. It's like, here's some substance for you. Here are the answers to all the questions. Here are the answers to the things that you're concerned about. Look at this. Look at this over here. I really don't understand how in 2024, I don't see an effective method to combat that. I really don't.
But if we're feeling bad about it, how do we protest?
I love that. Dan, let me just, I missed you, man.
Do we still see merit in protest?
No, I think your issue is it's in the UK anyway. The act has been, I just think now it's been boxed in, it's legally to a place where it can never create enough disruption to serve its purpose. I think in America, it's funny because it's almost like it's any kind of movement gets commoditized so quickly and co-opted so quickly into something which becomes part of a mainstream machine that it inevitably gets sucked into the very sort of organizations that it's protesting against. The knee, taking a knee straight away, like is the first thing, and then you know, it's easy for opposition to coalesce around it, to organize around it, and you know, it loses its focus.
To market it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So to me, I don't think it is on a sort of mass organized scale.
I genuinely think that in the UK there seems to be, I feel that there is a lot of, I don't want to say virtue signaling, because I don't think it is virtue signaling, but I think protest seems to be more symbolic over here. Like I genuinely believe if you want change, at least set a few wheelie bins on fire. Honestly.
But it's the issue we have is like, well, first of all, the Iraq War, was it 2 million people? 2 million people marched against the Iraq War. Like, there is nothing that can be done there. If those 2 million people had literally gone to Down Street and smashed those windows in, they might have changed something. But you can't, like, there's two people are still afraid of the risk, the personal risk to them of doing that. And like London, every single weekend, there is a march or a protest against something. Like Palestine, I mean,
they're that frequent.
I was down there exactly. Like, in this is just an ongoing, continuous thing, which is given a slot.
So then I feel like it surely there's some element not to. I think there is a majority of people there that think that something is going to happen as a result of their action. But then I'm also like, some of this has to be self-serving because you know nothing's changing here. But if you are like deeply affected, or you feel like you want to do something aside from giving money and going there yourself, and putting up stories, like, what can you do? We need a mass. Everyone stop paying a specific type of bill. Hit them where it hurts. Because placards don't do it.
What is it that you think protests are trying to do? I think is the start point, because I think you have different protests for different reasons. Some protests are there because you need direct action now. Some of them are I think we honestly are protesting to kind of hold on to the Overton window and try and fight to claw it back to a place that we think is acceptable, because the sort of political Overton window of, for example, taking Palestine, the place that the political landscape, it veers from, we're going to say that we are sad that Israel is essentially, well, I mean, there was another report coming out today saying that it is functionally a genocide, but you can't say genocide, and we're going to say that more needs to be done right up until the point where Palestine is wiped off the face of the earth, and then we'll talk about lessons learned. So I think that there is protest to kind of say, hold on, no, we're moving beyond that. But within that protest, there will be people that are of the wheelie bin setting variety. That's your far end, and then on the other end it's the black square summer of 2020. Protest has to be able to encapsulate all of those. If you're willing to get up at 8 o'clock on a weekend, does protest work? I think we started off too broad. I think you're kind of saying that the kind of people that kind of go to a protest and then go and have Starbucks, we'll talk about how Gaza is a massive issue, but then vote for Labour and Conservatives. That's the revolution ain't them, but you're also going to need them to not jump in the way when the real revolution happens. It's got to be Martin and Malcolm. You need both. You need direct action. You need the consent of the majority. I will probably always. My other thing is like organise. The reason I really get wound up with Jill Stein every 4 years is because you don't do anything in the intervening 4 years. You're not even trying to win. You're just trying to spoil. Like, organise. So to those that are protesting, yeah, I agree, but write to your local MP, and if they ain't doing anything, and you've got enough people in your ends that believe in what you do, get yourself involved in local politics. Get yourself involved. Get yourself elected onto a council. Get your people elected onto a council. Then get yourself into politics. Because I think also, and it's said so many times, Dan, but that sort of fatalism that you're kind of sort of espousing, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but that you're espousing, that is what I think people in power want you to believe.
Yeah.
And I'm from the Orwell school that the revolution will come from the people.
Absolutely, but Orwell hadn't seen the state of our people.
No, but he'd literally come out of a decade of like European and global conflict, from the Spanish Civil War dived straight into the Second World War. The man literally saw 9 years straight of bombs dropping on people's heads. It was more serious.
Yeah.
And he still said, it ain't going to come from the powerful, it's going to come from the powerless.
Are we becoming more powerless, though?
Define power.
My worry is that having these conversations and assuming that there is certainly still an amount of agency that we have as humans isn't necessarily the full truth when we think about AI and algorithms and how much of what we think and feel is actually our own thoughts and feelings anymore.
comfort is the enemy of equality. That's what I think. I don't think we're more powerless. I think it's more like, but the new Premier League season just started. But that new season of that TV show that I like's just coming on. And people are simultaneously too comfortable and too uncomfortable.
Yeah, but I think people are fed that comfort way more than they ever have been, though. If you are attached to your screen all day and you're just being fed this stuff that's going to keep you diverted, then we do have way less agency, I think, to actually challenge the status quo.
Yeah, no, I've been there's I forget the name of a documentary that I was watching. It's on Netflix and it's with all of the sort of early bigwigs of like Facebook and Pinterest and and they talk about how literally human beings' brains have been fundamentally changed through technology, and how the whole goal of technology is to essentially turn you into an addict.
Yeah,
like we are all crack addicts for technology. But your fundamental question, are we powerless? No. Because the second, again, take the 2 million people that protested. If they'd have kind of been on some Guy Fawkes energy, stuff would have changed. And all it takes is a small change in that situation. And I'm glad it didn't happen. I think it's really important to say that. I am genuinely glad it didn't happen. But if that shooter had been a little bit more accurate, are you telling me that the assassination of a presidential candidate wouldn't have led to some fundamental, like that America would have tore itself up? All it takes is a spark big enough. And I guess the tragedy there is that seeing mutilated children on the daily isn't a big enough spark. But then how can you care about anything if you know about everything?
Speaking of people taken to the streets, we'll talk about something a bit lighter, guys. Have you
Oh, that's so good.
heard of my guy,
Probably your best one yet.
DJ AG? DJ AG, for those listeners and viewers at home, is a DJ who predominantly, he's got he's from the grime school, went to school, a good friend with Jeremy, I think, from Skepta's brother, BBK, and we
don't need to. Jeremy is famous enough on his own. You don't need to say Skepta's brother.
I mean, but Skepta is bigger.
Yeah, look, let's be for real.
Yeah.
Skepta's brother, and they went to school together. He left his job and started doing mobile DJing. Well, when I say mobile DJing, this guy has literally got like a cart. He's got a mixer on it. He's got his decks on there. He's got a couple of fixed cameras, and he's just out there, and he's getting guys. You can sing, you can rap, you can give him 8, 16. Now guys are giving him sets, and this thing has grown and grown and grown over the last 4 months, I think it was, when I was
like
scrolling
wildfire.
backwards. Yeah. And obviously big MCs, big rappers, big artists, your man Raggaroody started coming through. Primarily, he's in Brixton.
Nah, he moved to King's Cross.
He's at King's Cross.
So and he's a little money and move.
Yeah, and he's elsewhere. And he's just literally outside. He was outside
the tube station. I was like, bro, you're gonna get jacked.
You can't be going back down there now.
with a man selling the seaweed and the Irish sea moss.
Yeah.
And incense.
Yeah. And he's giving music back to the people. Literally anyone can walk up. Anyone can walk up and touch mic.
But now it's a test of his integrity, isn't it?
It is. So this thing's blowing up. Obviously, he's getting hundreds of thousands of views. He's getting presumably A&Rs, hotting up his line. What does he do? Does he gatekeep it? Does he monetize it? Is he only letting professionals on there? As suggested by Mimi, the music blogger, suggested we need to, she's like, sometimes gatekeep because the quality is up and down, and it is. The quality is, there's some awful stuff on there.
First of all, yes, gatekeep the hell out of it, because the second you open yourself up, you'll lose it, because we just want something. It feels real, doesn't it? It feels like it could be a case that, Skeppy was just on road and saw it and was like, I'll pull up and give you a few bars. The second you lose that, the second it's like, this is going to sound so controversial, but the second you get some white rapper that's just been discovered who, went from the ends but went to like a private school, spitting these kind of Pete and Bass kind of bars where it's like, really, these pensioners are coming up with these bars, it's over.
If Ed Sheeran turns up on it, I'm going to burn the internet down.
Not too much on Ed Sheeran.
Yeah, not too much.
SBTV legend.
Yeah. No, he is.
Not too much on Ed Sheeran.
And also, Ed Sheeran was put on
tight, Ed.
Yeah. Come on. No, you can't come on the pod. But
you can come and watch us record it.
Yeah. But no, in all seriousness, I think, are you chasing a big bag? Or are you chasing the generational bag? Because if you're chasing that generational bag, you've got to gatekeep. You've got to gatekeep until you don't need the money.
But, and in saying that, does he, in gatekeeping that, how is he curating this? Is he going to block off access for all and sundry? Is it still free for all, but within the confines of the people that fit the genres that he's trying to appeal to?
It's got to have to be up and down, because the whole thing about like those, if you look at those legendary grime sets, what you don't see is that there's a bit before and a bit after where anybody can touch mic. Mm-hmm. And how do you improve if you don't bomb first?
Iron sharpens iron. At the end of the day, it is. I think the reason that it's resonated so much, particularly with an older audience, it's calling back to a simpler and I think more rewarding time, because you're talking about grime and obviously the clashes and everything that you used to have. I'm going to go back even further to like think about some of the ciphers in the US that you used to see that were recorded, like Biggie, some of the stuff that you see from him before all of the
Brooklyn
hits. Exactly, where it's just the mic is being passed around. And like some of the greatest stories that I hear about in hip hop are when you're talking about like New York in the late 80s, when every man and his dog was at the same school, just banging the tables and people coming up and rhyming and rapping over these homemade, man-made beats, right? That is, I think, when the art form to a lot of people was at its purest, and it feels like a kind of refinding of that purity.
You see it like, I mean, and it's this, to even broaden it out, like it's the same case across music. Like you will never, this is why there are so many bad artists around, because they don't have to put a year in playing in a club in Camden, getting pints of all sorts thrown at them. Like no one, like you're not gonna. There's never gonna be a Radiohead who've put 2 years in, like, and they come out with a fully fleshed like diamond album because they've done the work. Mm-hmm. People don't do the work anymore. People can't even write songs. They can't write bridges. Like there is, as you say, there's none of that sort of. There's none of that iron sharpens iron. There's none of that practice. There's none of that love of the craft of the journey itself. I've got a good 16
15 seconds.
Yeah, that's
it's
all you
15
need.
If you get a hook on TikTok, you've got enough money to survive to then kind of put stuff out. It's just, and my favorite artists are the ones that kind of go, no, I'm an artist, but I know how to do that 15 seconds. Like Mooney Long is perfect. Like Mooney Long will kind of put something on where you're like, yeah, it's got all the dance, but she's got music behind it. Some people will literally just have a hook that it then they're like, how do I turn it into something?
Yeah, and I don't blame them. That's the world's changed, right? They have, TikTok just lets you do that. Yeah. So there are people who previously would not have had a chance, and for better or worse, they are now exposed. Like I feel bad for bringing up Rams. He's the guy from Barking. I remember they booked him for was it One Big Weekend? I felt so bad for him, and he's on this.
Oh God, stage. Yeah, I saw that.
And he's got one. The guy's got. He has one song, and he's obviously never played. Like he's never played clubs. He's never done like tours. He might have done a few PAs, just repeating that. And he was set up to fail. Mm. He was set up to fail because he'd not been through that sort of.
I remember seeing Estelle in a pub with about 40 people there.
I mean, you saw,
and then a few years later,
Jay Huss.
Yeah,
and there was probably about 50, 100 people in that room.
Yeah. So I see Estelle, and then a couple, like 3-4 years later, she's, standing next to Kanye. And people go, oh, who's this new? It's like, no, she's put the work in. Whatever he wants to do, he's taken a risk, and it's going to pay off whatever way he chooses. But I think the world is telling us that we want something that feels real.
Yeah.
We want something that feels real. Even though this is going to sound completely mad, even the way that something like OnlyFans has exploded, because it feels more real than just going to a porn site and not having that interaction. People want that sort of human interaction, that sense that something off the cuff is happening. There's a reason that TikTok is so popular, and my favorite thing on TikTok is all the big brands do not get views on their TikToks. It's hilarious. It's people that are doing something that starts off as off the cuff and they go, that's my brand now. And so he's going to get paid either way. But I think if he goes the corporate route, it will be a flash in the pan. And I think if he stays true to it, it'll be like, he could become like the gatekeeper. That's how you get money. In that sense of like, oh no, you got to come through and do a set with AG if you're going to be on your way up. And if you get the mic, you get the mic. But, you know, it's rough and ready. And if you flop on that, then you need to go away and sharpen your skills.
I hope you're right. But again, I think this also goes back to the conversation we had around politics. Because the way that so many people consume media now, with the 15 seconds that we were talking about, you got your sharp 15 seconds, you do then have an entire generation and generations of people who've just come to expect that. Do they really care about what's outside of that?
But it's not. So for someone like, it's not about. I don't want to say it's not about the other people, but like, I was delighted that two artists that I've been following for 6 years got nominated for their first Grammys this year. Charlotte Day Wilson got nominated for a Grammy, and people go, "That's a flash in the pan." No, grafting, putting the work in, and I think actually that's the message, isn't it? If you actually put the work in, when the moment comes, you'll be ready for it. And if it doesn't, because think of all the internet trends just from this year that you don't remember. And I know that sounds oxymoronic, but I'm sure in February or March, there was something that was happening where every third video had it. Don't remember it now because actually they weren't ready for that moment. If AG's put that work in, it'll be fine.
And also, like, the good thing for me, like, the big artists, go and support it. Go and support it. Go and do something. Go and, like a lot of them, we're in the middle of this sort of, I mean, I don't want to get too into sort of Grammys and genre, but there's, black music, we're talking rap, grime, there is a schism between the grime is viewed as the old heads, and it's been gatekept to death, people say. This week, Conglomerate have dropped an album which the generation below, like Gen Z and below, you know, they're calling it a sort of classic. It's sort of Playboy Carti-esque stuff. And there's a real schism between people who think, you know, it ain't worth anything because it's not of the same style that we're used to have been elevated through sort of like, you know, the sort of our peak grime artists and Dave to a certain extent, people around that genre, people around in that bracket, sorry. So I think that this is just really important. Like, you know, we want to see our artists, want to see our musicians getting out there in the grassroots, touching mic, you know, close to the fans. Thank you very much, Dom Jallo.
Is that it? We're done.
Little light one.
The light one.
I elected to end this episode.